Good evening. Oh, this is loud. Everyone can hear me this time though, right? Super good. Thank you all for coming. My name's Teresa Kofsky. I serve as your town administrator, and this is the last of the public informationals that we'll be having on the Proposition 2.5. The first informational that you attended gave an overview of why we're looking for a Proposition 2.5, what got us here, and what the tax impact would be, so on and so forth. The second informational we had several department heads come and speak to you to let you know at that time what the budget reductions would be. One of the things that we have said right from the get-go is that if an override does not pass, then we go forward with a reduced budget. And that's a fact, and we have to live with that, period. So tonight what I'm going to do, I had mentioned at the last meeting that the presentations from the department heads were based on the numbers that they had at the time. Those were the cuts that were brought forward at the time. However, since that meeting, there was a joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and Advisory, because even with those cuts that came forward, we're still $717,000 in the deficit. We have to go forward with a balanced budget. That's the law. So we had to go back, and they looked at budgets, and they went through that exercise, and there are several huge cuts that have been made so far, and we're still just out of reach of meeting that. So there will be more. I want you to know that, and so that it doesn't come as a surprise, because a municipal budget, just like a school budget, is a moving target as the numbers continue to get solidified. So tonight we're going to talk about the impacts of either override and the impacts of no override. And again, this is simply to give you the information necessary to make a decision. I'm not going to tell you to vote yes. I'm not going to tell you to vote no. I just simply want to give you the information. We're going to go through this presentation. I'm going to do this really quickly. If I'm going too fast, just let me know and I'll slow it down a little bit. But one thing I did hear back from you folks was that the last meeting, the presentations that were given lasted a long time, much longer than we had anticipated, and it didn't give the audience much time to ask questions. So we want to be able to change that tonight so that you have opportunity to ask questions, okay? So let's move it forward. Understanding the override results. So a yes for the 1.6 million is it maintains level services for both the town departments and Quabog Regional School District. It increases the property tax levy permanently. So I know there had been some questions. Some people are wondering, does this go away in a year? You know, no, it doesn't. This is permanent. So that's a permanent impact. Ballot question 1B for 1.1 million, a yes vote, maintains level services for the town departments and provides for the lower Quabog Regional School District budget, which was option number 3 that was provided by the school committee in March 2026. Again, increases the property tax levy permanently. A no vote for both questions results in, with the already reduced budgets received, the town will still need to reduce by over $717,000 to fill that budget gap. This will result in the following: significantly steep cuts to town departments and furthers the reduced already reductions of the option number 3 of Quabog Regional School District. And what I mean by that is that their above minimum request was about $349,000. Since then, we are reducing that by another $100,000. We're going to go over the tax impact again, which is permanent. Your current tax rate, and this would be the 1.6 million override, your current tax rate is $10.75. The proposed tax impact would be $2.26. So the total proposed tax rate comes up to $13.01 per thousand, and that's on the 1.6 million override. The 1.1 million override, again, your current tax rate is $10.75. Proposed tax impact is $1.56. The proposed tax rate then would be $12.31 per 1,000. This probably looks familiar to you, but I wanted to go over it, especially for those that weren't in attendance for the first meeting. This is for the 1.6. This is the estimated override impact on your 2027 tax bills. The proposed tax rate impact, $2.26, totaling $13.01 as a tax rate. The state shows the average single-family assessed value is $413,594. The current tax bill is $4,446 for that single-family tax bill. The impact to that bill will be $934.72 added to that tax bill. If you have an assessed value of, let's say, $250,000, the estimated tax impact would be an additional $565. If you had a $650,000 value, then you'd be looking at an impact of $1,469. On a 1.1 million, the same valued house at $413,594, the impact to the bill would be $645.21. If you have a $250,000 valued home, you're looking at $390 for an impact. If you have a $650,000 property, you're looking at a $1,014 impact. And that again is on the 1.1 million override. Now we're going to jump into the impacts of a no vote. For the police department, we're looking at a cut of almost $200,000, $178,790. The result of that will be a layoff of 2 full-time officers, layoff of 2 part-time officers, no overnight shift, longer response time, and that's when you're relying on state police to come. So they could be coming from Sturbridge, Brookfield, Belchertown, Holden, Athol. And with that, there's the risk of increased crime or medical complications. And what I mean by medical complications is that they are the first responders, right? And if someone's going into cardiac arrest and it's going to take 12 minutes because you don't have local coverage, you're relying on state police, that becomes a medical complication. Reduced overtime, and that's typically coverage for vacation, sick time, personal time, emergencies, and extended calls. Fire department's looking at a $22,000 cut. That's $15,000 from salaries, reduces trainings. What's going on here? Okay. All right, reduces trainings, reduces ability to respond, impacts mutual aid, and over $7,000 from expenses for repairs and maintenance of equipment. So certainly not a good place to be for fire department. Ambulance service, that is a contracted service. However, the reduction there will be $10,000, which will certainly have an impact on the rescue squad's operations. Sorry. Highway department. Highway is looking at a $52,438 reduction. It reduces highway personnel from 4 full-time to 3 full-time and 1 part-time. Impacts to all highway services provided throughout the year. Reduction of administrative assistant hours. Office will be closed on Fridays. Reductions in much-needed vehicle and equipment maintenance to the aging vehicles and equipment that we cannot afford to replace. Tree warden budget cut by $24,500. That budget is essentially cut in half, which increases the backlog of hazardous trees that need to be removed. Senior center, a reduction of $38,060. It closes the senior center at least 2 days per week, reduces staff hours, eliminates a position, may need to find a different location for Meals on Wheels program for preparation and distribution, and reduces existing programs. Libraries proposed at a $40,000 cut. This reduces the number of days open and possibly hours per day open, reduces library staff hours, loses certification, and if certification is lost, residents will no longer have the ability to use other libraries throughout the state. And just a quick note there, over 400 patrons use this library weekly, which is just unheard of within our surrounding towns. Municipal lighting, $20,000 is being taken out of that. That's almost half of West Brookfield streetlights will not be lit. The drop-off center will be closed on Wednesdays. Cemetery is reduced $5,000. That will reduce cemetery labor hours by approximately 250 hours. Recreation, there will be no lifeguard this summer on at the town beach, nor will there be improvements to the town beach. Lake Wickabog, $16,000 cut, significantly limits invasive aquatic weed management. Celebrations, $2,500. There will be no funding for 2027 Memorial Day Parade and no funding for the 2027 4th of July celebration. Board of Health will be reduced $5,000, reduces administrative assistant, health agents' hours. Computer technology and IT, $33,000 cut, reduces the ability to replace computers or related equipment and software upgrades and licensing, security and compliance exposure, slower and limited response from managed service providers, MSPS, or internal help desk. Quabog Regional School District, that number up there, the negative 320,668. This reduction of that amount is from the above minimum contribution line item. It consists of the proposed reductions by QRSD and an additional $100,000 cut from that. At this time, I'm certainly unsure of how the additional cut of $100,000 will impact the operations of the school. I wouldn't be able to answer that. That's something that the school district could answer. The other impact is the impact to the district is that Warren would have to match our reduction in the amount of $150,000, which means the district will need to reduce by $250,000. Town clerk's office reducing by $7,335. This eliminates 1 position, a part-time clerk. Dog licensing and additional work of that part-time clerk will now be added to the town clerk and assistant town clerk. The assessing department, a cut of $15,482. The assessor's administrative assistant hours will be cut by 10 hours per week. General customer service office will be open to the public a maximum of 3 days per week with less hours. The Selectman's Office eliminates the full-time executive assistant position, significant loss of administrative capacity because that means that your town administrator is going to be doing that job as well, reduces town administrator's capacity for strategic planning, policy development, capital project oversight, long-range financial planning, interdepartmental coordination, grant development, and administration. Straining communications between, for boards, departments, and the public, longer wait times for residents, business, and departments. The accounting department, and I want to kind of pause on this. The next two is accounting and treasurer. And although the dollar amounts don't seem like much, you've heard of some very serious departments, right? Police department, senior center, library, we can go on and on. Those are all incredible services that you have access to. And one thing that you may not be thinking of, because there would have been a time that I wouldn't have thought of that if I were sitting in these seats, and that is your financial team. You folks are in a financial crisis, period. And it's been going on for a long time, and I know I have said this over and over and over. But you used a Band-Aid every year for the last, 8 years by using free cash. And what did that do? It gives you a sense of, that things are good because you're not seeing the pain here. And there was also, how did we get this far is not only have the expenses increased more than the revenues, because again, we're only allowed 2.5%, right? Per law, that's Proposition 2.5, but the expenses don't increase only 2.5%. They don't. And so combined with that, and combined with all the money that came forward with COVID, things seemed pretty darn good, but in all actuality, they weren't. So here we are, and before I came to town, and when I did come to town to work for you folks, I was given a little bit of history, and I understood that at one point you had significant turnovers, and some of those turnovers were in key positions. And when we think of key positions, I want you to think, I don't know that he's here tonight, but Eric, who had been a select board member, at the last meeting, he used anatomy, talking about town and town government and community, so on and so forth. I want you to think of your financial team as the heartbeat. And without it, we're in some serious trouble. So you're at a point now where you have a good team. And we have a contract for the assessing because we identified that there was some weakness. And so we strengthened that. Now, the last thing that you need at this point is to lose your financial team, because you're not going to get experienced municipal accountants, experienced municipal treasurer collectors banging your door down to come work for a town who's had to make almost $1 million in cuts, just so you know. And so all the other departments, they won't have the ability to function if you don't have a solid financial team. And that's what I want you to be thinking about. And trust me, the folks that are sitting in these positions right now, they didn't do this, okay? This has been going on for years and years. And we're going to get to all your questions after. I'm just about done here. Accounting department, $25,938. Administrative assistant position eliminated. This dismantles progress made towards the transition plan with the critical financial department. And why I say that is because the assistant is working on her certification, and our town accountant is looking to be able to retire, but wants to make sure that it's handed over to a certified accountant that has been trained and gone through her schooling. And she's almost there. Without the help, there's no reason for your town accountant to stay. The workload shifts to the town accountant. No one will be available to cover the necessary accounting duties during absence of the town accountant, who has a right, by the way, to get sick or take a vacation. Slower processing of financial transactions, reduced checks and balances, slowed service for departments, reduced capacity for financial planning and improvement. Treasurer Collector's Office, a reduction of $19,817. Reduces assistant town treasurer collector's hours from 32 hours down to 24. This will mean slower processing of tax payments, turnovers, deposits, receipts, delays in posting revenue and reconciling accounts. Limits the treasurer collector's time on higher level financial management and compliance. Delays in tax title, collections, and delinquency management, which is key. You just heard her speak about the improvements that have been made since she's been working here for West Brookfield, because you went so many years without any action being taken on tax title, collection, and delinquency. And so her receivables are really high percentage rate. Reduced internal support for departments. A quick summary impacts of Proposition 2.5 override. Prevents cuts. If it were to pass, it prevents cuts to essential services, public safety, education, highway, town hall operations by providing the revenue to cover rising fixed costs that the normal levy limit can't keep up with. It stabilizes staffing and service levels across departments, reducing layoffs, delays, and loss of programs. The other impact, it does increase the property tax levy permanently. The new levy limit becomes the baseline for future budgets. The override amount stays in the tax base every year going forward. And that is it for the presentation. And I had also said to you that if you had questions, to email those questions. And so I didn't receive too many of those, but the ones that I have received, I'd like to answer real quick. First question, about how much money is used from the free cash account? What is the current balance as of today in free cash? The answer to that is in fiscal 2025, your certified free cash the town received was $969,596. At last June's special town and annual town meeting, the town used almost all of it, over $405,000 was used to balance the fiscal 26 budget, and over $550,000 was used for other expenses outside of that budget, such as prior year bills, various capital improvement projects, maintenance projects, post-employment benefits, which left a little over $17,000. So think of that. Almost $1 million, and all you're left with is $17,000. When viewing the Division of Local Services, which is a department of the Department of Revenue, when you look at free cash certification each year going back to 2022, you'll see that the prior years, this town has received certified either over $1 million or just under $1 million. Closing out of the last fiscal year, we were certified $276,000 in free cash. That's it. That's what you got, certified. That's a big difference. Second question, how are tax rates decided? Is it town, state, or federal? Would think that the tax rate would increase as values increase. And this question's a really great question because it took me a while to wrap my head around it. So property tax rates are set locally by each town, not by the state or federal government. How is it calculated? The tax rate is calculated every year. Towns figure out how much money they need to raise through property taxes. The amount is called the tax levy. Under Proposition 2.5, the town's levy can only increase by up to 2.5% per year, plus any new growth, which is a result of new construction, property improvements, and this town averages around 45,000 in new growth each year. Any voter-approved overrides or debt exclusions. That's the other way that it can be, part of it. That's what we're doing now, right? The other part to that question, why do tax rates often go down when property values go up? This is the part that confuses a lot of people, actually. But it's just math. The town uses a basic formula. Tax rate equals total tax levy needed divided by the tax value of all property in town. So if the levy stays about the same, but the total property value rises, then the tax rate must go down to raise the same amount of money. Example, if a town needs 10 million in taxes, when the property value is 500 million, tax rate is 20 per thousand. If property values rise to 600 million, tax rate drops to about 16.67 per thousand. Even though the rate drops, your actual bill can still go up if your home value increases. Why don't rates go up when the values go up? Because Proposition 2.5 doesn't allow a town to just collect more money simply because values increase. They can only increase the levy by the allowed limits. Therefore, the rate adjusts downwards when value rise. Question number 3. If an override is voted in favor, does that mean the Board of Selectmen are able to decide to raise our taxes anytime they want going forward and not have to have the residents vote to approve future overrides? The answer to that is no, they cannot. Every override proposed would need to be placed on a ballot and voted by the people. Question 4, if the school closes and becomes a town building and the town has to pay for upkeep, how much do we save by not having to fund the school versus cost to upkeep the building? So the answer to that, based on the numbers that had been proposed by the school, by Quabog School Committee budget presentation back in March, the town saves $677,905 with the school closed. The maintenance cost is estimated to be about $230 with the school closed. Question number 5, the last question. School committee meeting is Monday, the 27th, and the town informational is the same day. And that is true. Our meeting for tonight, all 3 informationals had been scheduled back in March, and I'm so sorry that it happened to land on school committee. We didn't realize school committee was meeting, and so I apologize for that. There was no intent, and I would have certainly preferred not to have had it the same day as a school committee meeting. So anyway, now I'm going to open it up to questions. So we've got about a good solid hour or so for questions. I'm going to open it up to questions. Please come to the mic and speak into that so everyone can hear your questions. We have quite a few folks from town government here and departments throughout to answer questions as well. Thank you.
Hi, Denise Pomprian from Lakeshore Drive. One of my questions is, if this town moves forward with an override of 2.5%, Warren is indicating they won't match funds. What do we do? We're stuck in a quagmire, because I honestly feel that if we close the elementary school, we're basically not allowing young families to come to this town. I own a 4-bedroom house on the water. If I was a young parent, I would be looking for an elementary school within the town. I don't want my taxes to go up, but I feel it's very, very crucial that we have the nucleus, which is an elementary school. So could you speak to how is that going to be managed? Do we still we now overrode 2.5, but we don't have an elementary school?
We don't make that decision.
No, I know in the past we've been in this mess, and Warren has been in trouble, and West Brookfield has always stepped up, and our selectmen have gone over to talk to Warren, because we are in a district together and we need to function cohesively. And for them to say no when we're in dire straits, but yet we want to keep our elementary school open, it's just not, it's not right. I'm just speaking because I've been in this town over 40 years. I've been on the planning board. I've been on regionalization of building up a school. My name sits on that. I know the problems we've had with Warren. So it's putting West Brookfield in a difficult situation where, honestly, people want to come to our town. They like this elementary school. And here we sit quickly wanting to shut down a school when it's basically the nucleus and the driver to get young families to come to this town.
I hear what you're saying, except that we have never said that 1.6 would keep the school open. We can't tell you that. That's not our decision.
But why not, if we're raising it up and we're meeting what the school wants?
And then are you going to go for an override again next year?
No, I'm going to expect my government to stand up and have a 3-year plan of how do we get out of this mess.
And guess what? It's simple math. It is simple math. When the revenues that you're taking in cannot pay for the expenses that you're receiving,
but ma'am, I've
and
asked,
the increases to those.
Say we override 2.5. You have the revenue. What are you doing moving forward?
Okay, so one thing that we'll be doing is we're looking at the financial management. We're looking at short-term and long-term goals. The problem being is that the federal funding that comes forward is coming forward in the amount that it was in 2008. It's 2026. And they never added anything in there to address inflation. So if you don't get raises, right, are you going to be able to live on the income that you had back in 2008 today? For a lot of people, no, that doesn't work. The math says it doesn't work. So that part we will petition, we'll continue to petition, but it takes legislative action. That is beyond our immediate, right? So we talk to our legislators, we've been doing that. We've been petitioning them. We've met with the senators, we've met with the representatives. We continue to notify the governor's office. We will continue to do that. We're not giving up on that. But just as we have asked that all of you do the same.
And I'm doing that.
Great.
But my thing is you're asking for an override with a potentially school closing. I don't think that's fair.
And
I just
that
don't.
has never been part of why we've asked for an override.
But
It's not what brought us to putting an override. It was the level services budget.
all right, so
The decision to close the
so
school.
as an administrator of a town, do you feel that closing an elementary school is going to impact the town at all?
Honestly, I think that I can see where folks would feel that way, and I don't really know.
Well,
I don't really
I
know.
actually have research that I will email to you where property values decline. So in essence, you're going to be getting less tax revenue because we have no elementary school, and I will certainly forward that to your email. It's numerous real estate research that they've done over the year, different populations, different sized towns, and from way back to the 1990s to 2007, it indicates that property values decline.
And a lot of schools are closing, and I know that. And actually, very close to us, there have been elementary schools that close. I think what it comes down to is having the ability to fund it. And
Well-
if the number of students continue to decline, at what point?
So let's talk about those numbers. The preschool used to be in West Brookfield. It's now housed up in the middle school. So that dropped our numbers. New Braintree did close a school. They didn't close it. They redirected, and they have special programs. So the school is still functioning, and it at least has a web page. So I'm just saying we're going to close this up, wrap it up, and just heat it and cost that. We're basically, $400,000 is what you said in the math is what we're going to end up saving, because we're still going to have to heat the building. So I just don't think, I understand times are hard. I do know that there's money that Governor Healy rejected, $300 billion worth. She sent it back. That would be coming to our town, and that would be coming to our schools. So I think we need to advocate for that. But I think
Absolutely.
as the head of the town, you need to recognize that I'm willing to pay my fair share, but I want the whole package. I don't want to be without a school. Thank you.
And again, just to address that, I don't make the decision to close your school. I don't. And so,
But I'm just asking the selectmen, you, to speak to Warren, because I think you have to advocate for this town.
Warren Pay is 60%, right?
That's okay. I'm Cammie Lamica. I'm one of the select board members here in West Brookfield. I used to work for the school department, so I understand how the school finances work. Warren has always been about 60% of Quabog School in district. West Brookfield has always been about 40%. And I do hear you about going and talking to Warren, because I know years ago there were conversations between both towns, because there was a point where West Brookfield could afford more and Warren couldn't.
Exactly.
So I have no problem going and talking. When we actually had our Board of Selectmen's meeting to reconsider the ballot question, that was one of the topics we talked about. And one of the Finance Committee members were there, and that's what I had told the parents that were in attendance that night. Even if the $1.6 million override passed here in West Brookfield, I was not sure that that was going to make sure a difference to the school district to keep West Brookfield open at that point, because Warren would have to match their amount of money for that. And Ray Capaco came up into the meeting and said, Warren does not have the funds to be able to match that number, is what he had told the meeting at that time.
And neither do we.
Well, if an override would be, we would be able to do that.
Isn't the
Wait a minute, let me finish, please. Let me finish.
Okay.
So it's one of those things that I have no problem as a select board member going and talking to the select board, finance committee, school committee. I understand the school's important to the town. I absolutely do. I know how important it is. There's also a declining enrollment. We have to balance those pieces. I've gone to the superintendent myself and said, what about this? Can we try this? They've looked at a number of avenues. It comes down to that is a declining enrollment. West Brookfield is the smaller of the schools. They have more classroom space over at Warren. So those are the reasons they decided to move in that direction, from my understanding and talking with the superintendent and the school committee. There's nothing wrong with advocating and see where we can get, but it's going to be a commitment from both towns to be able to afford that, and what could the school budget look like? And that's if Warren can do it. So I have no problem going and advocating and having those conversations. I don't want anybody to guarantee and think that it's a guarantee if the 1.6 went through, that the school would stay open. I don't want to mislead anybody.
It's sad that that's the case, because I think you'd have a better shot at getting an override. But when we're losing a school, we're all fearing our taxes, our taxes are going to go up and our valuation is going to go down, and you're going to be in just as much of a mess.
I understand. I understand. This is not an easy spot for all of us. I live in town as well. I feel the pain as much as everybody. It's not an easy decision. It's not. For house finances, as well as the services, it's not an easy decision. That's why we're trying to explain it as best we can on both sides of it, and let people decide what they want to do. I'm sorry, Angela.
That's okay. So I just want to touch on a couple things quickly. So I'm Angela Ruthier, administrative assistant to the school here. So our school, West Brookfield Elementary, has not been declining in numbers. I do the registrations here, and over the past 5 years, in 2020, we did relocate the preschool to the high school campus. We lost 40 students roughly around that time. But over the past 5 years or so, our numbers have increased. We currently have 252 kids in the school right now. 4 or 5 years ago, I had less than 220. So that's only 30 kids, but that's more than a classroom, So we currently have 251 today. Warren has 285. That's not much more than us, okay? Where they're talking, they have 30 more children than us. We're going to close down our whole school. So that's one thing. I keep hearing declining numbers, declining numbers. It's not this building. This building is getting bigger and stronger, and we have one of the biggest kindergarten classes that we've had in years of 38 kids. So, I want people to know that. And then the other thing is, I'm just confused on the town's, what they put in and what the school committee needs for regionalization. Because the deal is, West Brookfield, we don't have the money to put in our portion for level services or level funded, right? We're going to do minimum contribution. But if we raise and we do our override here to get the amount to do, for example, level services, maybe not level funded, but level services, why is Warren now saying they don't have that money to meet us when that should have been the baseline for moving forward to next year's budget anyways? Right? I don't understand why they won't have their portion, and what do they have to increase if we're just giving our share? Shouldn't they already have their share to match? Are they planning on us not having enough money this year to contribute to the regular budget anyway? So I'm just confused on that. Warren saying they don't have their money to put in, because why do they have to give more if we're only giving bare minimum?
We're not giving bare minimum. So let's talk about one option of the school budget, just to be clear. So the one that would require an override of us of the $1.6 million is our minimum contribution for the town of West Brookfield went up $300,000 this year. I think if I remember correctly, don't hold me, Warren's I think only went up 100. Ours went up 300, and we're 40% of the budget. That is a determination that's made by the state based on the wealth calculation that the state does for people's income tax and property values in the town of West Brookfield versus the town of Warren. They come, and how many students, that's how the state determines those numbers. West Brookfield's number went up $300,000. Warren's went up about 100. So they were in a little bit better spot to start with. We had to come up with 300. They only had to come up with 100. The transportation number also went up. So the above minimum that we pay to the school district is where the 40-60 split happens. So anything that the district needs, so the district prepares their entire budget, salary increases, contracts, anything they have, and this is the number they need to come to. Then they deduct what we have to pay, our minimum, and we have to pay transportation, and so much money gets paid by the state directly to the school, and the difference that's left gets split between the two towns at a 60-40 split. So our above minimum number at that 1.6 million, we, at above minimum, I think it's just over $1 million. So our assessment, I think was our total assessment to Quabog would be $5,953,840. Warren's would be $5,987,442. So the towns are what are picking up the difference of the expenses that happen at the school, because the state is giving them $75 a student, which is another $80,000 a year towards a $20 million budget.
Right.
And that's the bottom line problem.
Right. So we're, as a community, we've all come together. We're writing letters to these people. We're attacking the state. We're doing that. But that, as we know, is like
Yeah.
in the future. That's not happening
Yeah.
now. So what we want to know, like we're pooling together to try to save our town departments. We cannot go without our ample police force. Do you know how crucial it is? We just recently had a fire on Ragged Hill, and some of the first people there were the police who were helping run the hose, you know,
Yep.
and put out the fire. So we need our services all around the board. So, but if we step up and put in the tax money this year and raise it, we need it all around the community. I get it. What is the plan going forward so we're not going to continue in this crisis every year going forward? We need some sort of, someone needs to sell some land or get a business in here somewhere. We need a Starbucks, we need a Chipotle, we need something.
Lottery ticket.
You know, so.
A winning one.
We need some businesses.
Yeah.
Someone has to come up with something. Otherwise, we're going to take steps back. We're going to go backwards unless we want to be a little rural farming community. And, you know, I mean, New Braintree did not close the elementary school. The school district never gave up their lease. They did do some restructuring there, but that was because the class sizes were very, very small, of like 10 kids in a class. And it wasn't feasible. So they moved the kids out. They had to clean out asbestos from that school. And they do have a preschool and another program, the high school special programs, running out of that elementary school. So that building didn't close for the town as far as, you know, young people moving in. They are sending their kids to Oakham Center, but it's still a little different than closing a school. This school has been open and going since, what, the 50s. My parents, my families have been coming here. I've worked here for almost 23 years and a week, I think it's been. And I just feel like this is the heartbeat of the town. We do so much with our community. We're constantly trying to pull in our police, our fire, our senior centers. We did a wonderful pen pal program with the seniors in the past. Like, we do walking field trips to the common. We do walking field trips to the town beach. You know, we go and explore the historical building. You know, there's so much in our town, in the history here, that we will lose if we close this building. So if we step up and say, okay, we're gonna spend this money, we're gonna save what we have now, we need to know there's gonna be some plan so that we're not nailed with it every year. Like, how can we does there need to be another planning board or some sort of another, like, you know, there should be some trends and someone forecasting what's going to happen down the road, so we're not saying we're going to have to redo this override every year going forward. And, you know, we can hope and pray that the government's going to change what they're doing, but as you said, they haven't changed it in how many years. That formula has been killing us. And, I mean, colleges are closing. We've seen it all around us. Hampshire College, Anna Maria, the South Hadley school system is suffering. There's so much going on. So, like, if we do it now, because we don't want to see the closure, what can we plan on for, you know, something in the future?
Sure.
Could we bring the preschool back here?
It's actually at the high school campus, so it's not, they're merging services, and I think that they're thriving the way that they do it because they're actually saving money. because preschool requires special ed transportation, and we were kind of sharing services and splitting staff between both schools. So when they put them together at the high school, they did find they're saving money, which again would be what we would do if we merged the two elementary schools. You would save money because you're closing, you know, the areas of two areas needing resources and funds and things like that. You'd be combining those kids into one session. I have questions for the school committee, which I couldn't be at their meeting tonight, about logistics, because of course, for me, I'm thinking logistics, busing, transportation, arrival, dismissal. They have 10 buses, I have 6. How are you doing that in and out of that driveway? I know that driveway. You know, like certain things as far as assets and the school day, and I have all those questions, but I don't even want to think about that stuff until we are forced to have to close this building, and that just, I don't know. So I think what we were saying is if we step up and say, okay, we get some people to, and nobody wants your taxes to go up, everyone's broke. Like, someone was after my salary. I'm like, my salary is not the problem. I make a fraction of what I could be making if I were to work in another district far away. I literally am not the problem here. What the problem is, you know, all in general, the town is not making money. Pam Griffin said this year and year again. We you know, anyone who's been to the meetings has seen it. Yeah. But I think that we're also surprised because it came at us like without proper notice. Right. The last 2 years, the town budget, the votes went through okay. The school budget wasn't really questioned. We didn't have a fight the past 2 years. So there wasn't any red flags saying coming down the road, the school's going to close, heads up, this is the end of it. So I think that's where it's a shock to most of the community who aren't at those meetings, who haven't been informed that it was coming. So if we could find a way to save it now, we want to know there's a good solid plan to help with it in the future.
And I know that this isn't your priority, you want the override, but I think what I'm saying, I'm retired, I didn't plan on fighting for an elementary school. Yep, I'm retired, I didn't plan on fighting for an elementary school. What I'm saying, you've kind of awoken a sleeping giant, where this is a very important piece of our community that we don't want to disappear. We don't want this to turn into a barren building with weeds coming up. So you're asking us for more taxes, and we're saying we're here to support you, and whether we have to fight for legislative, we have to fight, maybe we'll get a new governor, maybe there will be funds. But I feel that I want my town's selectman or administrator to be advocating on our behalf, because we aren't a complete town without some form of school building. And we're not going to have anything. Everything's going to be in Warren or West Warren. And that to me isn't right.
I hear you. I understand.
Hi, Doreen Pihota, 11 Cottage Street. I'm the administrator of the West Brookfield page, so I get a lot of people asking to join the page. They want to see what our town is like. They're looking to buy a house in West Brookfield. When they Google, they don't find anything about our school. They find a bunch of statistics and that's it. When you Google Quabog Regional School District, you find their webpage that shows nothing about our elementary schools. I really think this is why I'm kind of mad that we were having to choose between what meeting to go to. They need to step up the plate. They need to promote our schools. I own a dance studio in Palmer. Their school system has a Facebook page that promotes those kids educationally and academically and all their extracurricular stuff every single day. And when you go on and you look, every time I go on my phone, I see it. It comes through because it's constantly posting every single day. We don't have that. We need that. We want to increase our enrollment. We need to, well, I get that, but I'm just using it as if we promote our town, promote our school, people are looking to move here. We close that school, they're going to stop looking. And I get a request almost every single day for that. And I only have one more granddaughter in the elementary school. She has one more year. My daughter-in-law is absolutely distraught. She does not want her to go to Warren because that means she's going to drive all the way to no man's land with her kid. And she's a school choice. So they choose to put her in here. We have, how many kids do we have in here for Warren school choice? We have like 50 or 60 kids that are school choice into our town because we have such a good town, a good school. And if we promote our school, we'll make not $5,000 per student, we'll make $16,000 per student if we can get people to move here or put their kids back in school. A lot of people took their kids out of school over COVID and didn't come back. We want to get them back here. We can increase those numbers. We can make the future look brighter. I think the whole town is willing, and I even think the seniors in this town that can't afford those taxes, and I'm one of them, that can't afford those taxes, are willing to vote yes on a 2.5 override if it saves our school, and we work towards a plan to not, if we have to cut a little bit from the budget, if we have to take a little from each department, if that's what it takes for next year to keep it going until we can get things changed and get more money from the government, we're willing to do it, but we need to see you guys standing up for us and fighting back and pushing Warren and pushing our school committee to make better choices. We also have a lot of programs in that school that Mr. Castigian got in there by grants, and now we're actually funding those programs in our school budget. There's a lot of things that could be cut. I don't want to take things away from kids, but we're spending money on an EMS program or a fire program or a CNA program, but we're going to close the school. What's more important? You know, we can close a school, never open it again, because once it's gone, it'll cost this town way too much money to reopen this building and turn it into a school. We can remove a program, we can take off a sports team, we can put those back in a blink of an eye. So that's my concern. We need to do better as a community to fight, but we need you guys to fight with the school and with the town of Warren. You need to be our voice and say, this isn't acceptable, we've got to come up with a solution.
Bill Blanchard, North Main Street. It really sounds like a lot of doom and gloom, frankly. I think you need, I wish you would really put a positive spin on what we might look like in the years to come, to give us some hopeful feeling that if override does pass us and we pay this extra taxes, that the future years will be better. And in the first meeting, you mentioned receivership. Based on what I'm seeing here, are we close to receivership in all honesty? I asked that question because I need to get an answer. Chelsea did it, and they were in receivership for 5 years, and it helped them. What would receivership look like for West Brookfield if we come to that point? And it's a step above bankruptcy, so there's a little bit of positive to receivership. But from what I'm seeing, based on one of the numbers that I'm seeing for this year, this fiscal year, it ain't going to get better. So would receivership be such a bad thing? I don't know what it looks like. I don't think I want it. In all honesty, I really don't. But are we really heading for that in the future years?
Ugh.
That's my question.
Oh, that is such a tough question. I wouldn't say that you're going to end up in receivership in the next year or the next 2 years. And it's hard to say how long it would take for this town to get there. But as you have a structural budget gap, and that gap is not going to close up. It's going to keep growing and growing just as it has been. And so would an override help? Yes. Is it the all-time, one-time solution? I can't lie to you and say, yep, we're good, because that's not the case. Because we know that next year the expenditures are going to be higher, and what are we going to be taking in for revenues? So we will have that baseline, which is helpful, but we may see that we will have to again make cuts. If we do nothing, I would say that time's going to come quicker than not. And what that looks like, basically, is that, and the state doesn't want to do this. They don't. They don't want to run your towns. But it becomes no longer your vote. It becomes their decision. And the state will decide what your tax rates are going to be, what services you're going to have, what level of services you're going to have, and if you can afford any of those, right? They'll make those decisions for you. So that may, for some, be a lot easier than having to make a decision. But I can't give you a time frame or to tell you that it would be better, because I tend to be someone that really respects voting. And to me, that gets rid of democracy right there, when the decisions are made by state and federal government. So we were asked about, looking at planning and what ideas do we have to try to get the ship back to upright. And there's plenty of things that we have discussed and that we plan on doing internally, and some are short-term and some are long-term. And so on the short term, we're looking at the town lacks in financial policies, and those are really important. They act as guardrails, and we really need to initiate policies that will be tailored to West Brookfield. And those policies they run the gamut, whether it's financial management, whether it's management of grants and processes. I think for a long time, the town departments really made their own decisions in a lot of ways, and that's because you didn't really have a core that would assist in making those decisions. And so we'll change that so that there aren't random decisions being made through departments, and that there has to be approvals set forward. So there'll be that for grants, for purchasing, so on and so forth. Aside from financial policies, we're also looking at, how can we generate revenue? So some positive is that we do have some solar projects that are in the process, and we will be negotiating on those for their pilot programs. So those have been approved. Once they are constructed and up and running, then those revenues will come in, and those are for typically 20 years. That would be helpful. We'll be looking at short-term rentals. So there's a lot of Airbnbs that are going on in town, and we don't see any revenues from that. There is a local excise tax that we can vote in, that you folks could vote in at a town meeting and work through that. So but that takes a lot of planning to do, and we've got to iron out those bugs, because it looks like the town had looked at that. So we want to revisit that. There's also economic development, and there's not a whole lot of economic development going on in West Brookfield, and there's some reasons for that. You don't have like town sewer, that's a big one for businesses, but you have a lot of character in this town, and there's a lot of talent in the town. I think that there's a lot of small businesses that if we all work together, we could brand West Brookfield and get folks coming into town to shop at these smaller local stores and to purchase. When money is spent in town, it stays in town, which is nice. So what we did is we had looked at the master plan, and that master plan was getting to, starting to age out a little bit. It was put together, I want to say it was 2017, and so what we did is we applied for a grant to update that, but with a real focus on economic development and the Route 9 corridor, because let's face it, Route 9, that's a main corridor, so it has value. And with the road project on Route 9, it's going to be much easier traveling. It just seemed to make sense. So we're going to be looking at that and seeing where we can go. So there'll be that study, and then we'll be relying on townspeople to come forward and give us the information that we'll be seeking. So what are you looking like? What do you want to see maintained? Because West Brookfield has a historic character, so you want to maintain that. But you also have beautiful farmlands. You've got a lot. You've got wineries. You've got some orchards. You've got a lot out here. So we'll be looking at that. So there'll be a lot of strategic planning. And again, that stuff takes time, but it's really positive stuff to work on. So we'll be working on those things. And again, we'll be calling out to you. Another thing that we're doing is took a look at CDBG funds and realized that the town of West Brookfield hasn't utilized those federal funds, and wanted to find out why. I wasn't sure if maybe we just weren't qualified, but you are qualified, and so that is Community Development Block Grant. And for municipalities that do a joint application, you can get up to, 1.5 million, I think it is, and then for a single, just under $1 million. And so we have just applied for a regional, just to kind of open the door for that. And we'll be looking at being able to potentially be able to do some improvement in the downtown area to the roads and water lines and that type of stuff, and also to be able to get engineering done. So it'll save us a lot of money in terms of that, but what we can do is manage that along with the economic development plan and see how we can make it work for less cost. And that's a source of money that we have not looked at here in West Brookfield before. So we just submitted that application, and we can do that every single year. So it's just at this point, we're in our planning phase. So it'll take a couple of years, and then we'll be able to map out the next 10 years and go from there and set our goals. So I hope that gives you a little bit of what's going on and what we're looking at for short-term and long-term. Okay. Hi.
Hi. Sorry, I walked up here when you were transitioning thoughts, so
Okay.
now my question has kind of switched, so bear with me. Because I was going to come up here and kind of ask about what you were just speaking on, but now I want clarification, because it sounds like you already kind of have like a planning board in place, or like, which divisions oversee all of those things that you were just talking about what you're looking at and working on, and then additionally, if those are already in place, what will that look like with or without the override?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So all of those things, so some of the things as far as the policies go, that would be headed up through my office and with our financial team, the town accountant, assistant town accountant, treasurer collector, assistant treasurer collector. There'll be input with assessors, and so we will collaborate on that and then bring forward policy change to the select board, who would ultimately adopt, and that would go in place, and then the departments would be notified. As far as a planning board, so as far as like this master plan update, so we'll be working with the planning board. There is an active planning board, a very active planning board in town. So we'll be working with them in updating the master plan. And then from there, we're also working with Central Mass Planning Commission and Regional Planning Commission. And so we will be holding public forums to ask for your participation in shaping that and how that looks, because after all, it's your town. So your input is absolutely crucial. So there'll be different teams, and with the CDBG, any funding that would do, let's say, ADA compliance, let's say the town wants ADA compliance for their common, the use of the common. Well, we'd be working with the common committee, we'd be working with the highway department. So it's the different departments that will have input or assist in going forward with these projects. So as far as what happens if, so these are all big items that typically your town administrator would be working on. And so my time will be a bit limited in the ability to really push through, but you know, we will try our best, absolutely. So we're not giving up, our team is not giving up, so,
Okay.
yep.
So just clarifying, if the override didn't pass, your ability to perform any of those planning projects is going to be significantly diminished, because you're going to have to just be maintaining the course the best you can. There's not going to be that extra time. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Ultimately,
Yeah,
you know, and I
okay.
hate to
Just
say that. You know, I'm somebody that would more or less put a cot in my office to get it done, okay? But, you know, realistically, I'm getting older, you know. I'll be getting my Walmart discount pretty soon, I'm just saying. Yeah.
I'm going to be brief here, but when you hear talk about boards like the Select Board, the Board of Health, the Planning Board, there are a lot of people who participate and contribute at Town Hall who are either volunteers, unpaid, some of us are elected, some of us are appointed because we volunteer to something. So Teresa, even if we have a board like the Planning Board, which does not get a stipend, that's a volunteer position, you're voted, you're elected to that, but you're not paid, okay? So the Planning Board is working on something. Central Mass Regional Planning Group is supporting you, and that's coming from grant money. But there are things that they do that now we have to turn around and go to the legal department. We have to go to the town attorney to get something reviewed before it comes to you for a planning board or zoning change. We have to interface with Teresa. So one of the things I just want to speak to is the notion that there's more to Town Hall than just these people. And there are a lot of volunteer positions available, and there are a lot of people who rotate through Town Hall. I'm one of them. I've been on a board. I moved to this town in December of '99, and I have been on something for every year since I have been here. And I'm now on the Financial Advisory Board, and I am retired. When I left the Planning Board, I didn't intend to do anything else. But please, there are a lot of people who come to these meetings, and we haven't had a lot of complaining tonight, and that's great, but I've been to pretty much every town meeting for 25 years, and these people have always needed your support. And if we're going to go forward in very, very difficult times, that support is going to need to be stronger. So I'm simply making, you know, a request that when you think about, you know, what you are or aren't getting, think about a way to contribute, because there are a lot of opportunities to support the town. And just going to a planning board meeting, just look at the calendar. If you want to know what's going on, find an hour on a Tuesday evening or whatever.
We can make a line. My question is actually about the EMS services. I know you said that there would definitely be significant impacts to them, but I heard that there was a potential that cutting them $10,000 would actually cause them to fold. Can you speak to whether or not that is an actual thing?
I had reached out to Ryan Bateman to try to get an exact, what would the impact be? And he was unable to do a deep dive, but he did say he would get back to me. So once I get that back, what I could do is post that on the town administrator's page of our website to let you know. I think it's important that you do know.
Yeah, I am not going to cry, I promise.
Oh.
But I've needed EMS before, and they were out on another call. And I've waited for when my son, he was 8 at the time, had a grand mal seizure. It is not a fun thing to wait that almost 20 minutes that I had to wait while my son was blue in my arms, when I couldn't wake him up. When we talk about these things, to me, that's a matter of life and death. That's just as important to me as the school is important to me. I don't ever want to see another parent or loved one wonder whether or not their kid was ever going to wake up because they couldn't get EMS there in time. And that's what I think about when we talk about these types of cuts and those wait times. It genuinely is a matter of life and death. So I wanted to make that clear that is so incredibly important.
Thank you for that. So I'm Bree. I'm a board of directors member with the West Brookfield Rescue Squad. So I would just like to clarify, first of all, I did say this last meeting, I did speak for a moment. So we are not affiliated with the town of West Brookfield. We are non-municipal, we are contracted with the town. As you saw up there, our contract is going to be cut $10,000. I did speak with Ryan about this earlier. We need to have a board of directors meeting to discuss how that effect is going to impact us. But at the end of the day, we are very aware that quite literally everybody in this town, everybody that you guys depend on, is also being affected if this does not go through. So it's not something that is optional. If the override does not go through, it is not just us that is affected. It is quite literally everyone. We are all connected in this town. Our effects will have to be internally figured out. When we had our change in leadership back in October, we almost had to close our doors, believe it or not. Our former chief left us in a very bad position. Don't make me laugh. We ended up, thankfully, figuring it out. We had a lot of great people who worked really hard internally to fix those issues without needing any additional town help. We figured it out on our own. As far as our contract goes, we will figure it out. We currently are getting a second ambulance, hopefully next week. That's what I've been told is next week. It is very important for us to be able to operate with more than one ambulance. One of the things that we took a big hit on were our former ambulances were never maintained. So when we did go and bring our A1 in for maintenance, we found out it was not fixable. It was not worth it. So that has made it so that way we've had to be down to one truck. As far as folding, you guys are stuck with us. We're not going anywhere. We will figure it out. We are here for this town. So it's one of those things though where I understand, I read the Facebook posts, you know? People think this is a scare tactic. It's not a scare tactic, it is just downright scary. I am looking for a house in this town. Me, my mom, and my 2 little siblings. One of them is 4, one of them is 8. I understand if we don't have a school that we're gonna have to figure something out with them. And it's my understanding, I could be wrong, so please correct me if I'm wrong, that this override is not school and departments. It is town money that we do not have that has to be allocated to the places that are in need, which is quite literally all of it. Okay. That is the reality of this. Everything is connected. We have to pass this. I have 2 little siblings. I don't want to see the school close either. But it's not just about the school. It's all of it, all of us, all of our futures here. Not passing this means that, yeah, I still get to be an EMT in this town, which I love. I want my family here so I can keep them safe. But that does mean I'm not going to be able to show up and go in right away if 4 of my police officers are gone, or I have to wait. I'm not going to be able to do my job if fire can't go in and pull out my patient. Not going to be able to do my job if I can't go and sit at the senior center and educate the public. It's all connected. We all have a lot of very valid concerns, but if we keep bringing up the same issues on Maura Healy, you guys are doing a great job with that. I see the letters going out. I see it all over Facebook. I see the posts. But that doesn't change right now, today, like that woman was saying. And she was right. It doesn't change it. All of these departments that are getting these cuts have taken deep internal dives, including us, even though we weren't originally going to be directly financially impacted by this. We all have been looking internally to try and find ways. I do like the idea of a planning committee trying to continue that growth, but the reality is it does also still affect every single person in here in some shape or form. But as far as us leaving, we're not.
Hi, Jack Sweeney, Lakeshore Drive. We moved up here 2010 for retirement, and we are on a fixed income. And I'm sure a lot of the elderly people in this town and in this room are in the same boat. We got 2% on Social Security this year. All right, you're talking about the override, even the low one, far exceeds what we got. All right, never mind our electric bills, our fuel bills, everything else. I think I'd like to encourage you, sharpen your pencil and really get back to the basics. As far as our street goes, police, fire, EMS, and streets are the only thing basically the only thing that we get for our tax dollars. And, you know, I was a recipient of EMS this year. I'm glad they were there. But I really think you need to realize what this is doing. You know, literally, you're going to price a lot of the elderly right out of this town. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Scott Cairns. I live on Shea Road in West Brookfield. I wasn't going to come up and say anything, but I feel like I have to. My family moved here in the late 50s, so my family's been in this town for about 70 years. I went to this school. My kids went to this school. My grandson goes to this school, okay? I've been I've been listening and reading only recently about everything going on. So shame on me for not being more involved, like MJ said, getting involved, coming to town meetings, things like that. Until the shit hits the fan, everybody thinks everything's fine, and then all of a sudden when there's a problem, everybody's like, oh geez, there's a problem, now we need to get involved. I'm the first one to say shame on me for not getting involved previously to see these things coming. Was there talk about it in the past? Yeah, there's been talk about, oh, it's going to be a problem, it's going to be a problem. Everybody thinks it's a scare tactic. Now it gets to a point where it's potentially a real problem. My wife has worked in this school and still does for 27 years, okay? So I don't think there's a lot of people that have the deep-rooted family that I have. Many of us do. Joe Landry does. He's been in this town for a long time. Many of my friends that grew up here, some of the cops that I know very well that are awesome people. I have multiple friends that work on town for the DPW, that work for the water department, so I've got deep roots in this town, so I feel I have every right to come up here and voice my opinion, whether people agree or disagree with me, with all due respect. I appreciate everybody that works in this town, that volunteers in this town, that puts their time into this town, and all the people that live in this town. I would like to address a couple of things that are on my mind that I'm passionate about, that I feel I just want to be heard. So I'll try to make it as quick as I can. The first thing I feel is the biggest problem, and I could be completely wrong because I'm not well educated on the whole situation, but I think the state is the biggest person to point the finger at. I think that the state is falling very short and not doing the residents of the state any justice. I think that's a huge problem. It's a huge injustice to the people that live here, that are citizens, that are part of this state, that provide the money, and a lot of state money is getting wasted and blown on stupid things, and I don't want to get into politics or any of that, but I just see it everywhere I go. I drive truck for a living. I'm all over the state. I see a lot of road work going on. Road work here that I don't agree with myself necessarily, that needs to be to the extent that it's at. This project on Route 9, some of that maybe needed to be done. I don't think they needed to go into such depth with it. They could have helped a lot of small communities, not just West Brookfield, around here with some of that money. Instead of putting in a bike path that needs to be widened to go to where? Are you kidding me? Nobody rides bikes from here to where? That's ridiculous. Now they're talking about they want to change the bridge on Long Hill. I've been riding bicycles up and down that hill since 1965. Okay, and that bridge was built in '83. That bridge does not need to be rebuilt. I live on Shea Road. That bridge was built in 1938. Okay, we have people driving over it with trucks. I drive tractor trailer and overweight stuff. People are going over that bridge all the time. Nobody cares about fixing that bridge. More people ride a bicycle around the lake out around Shea Road than they do to Ware going down Route 9. So shame on the state. I think that's ridiculous. I think the town, somebody, whoever, I don't know, needs to go after the state a little more aggressively, more like a pit bull, to say there's a problem and we need to get that funding. That's where I think the town maybe has dropped the ball. They haven't done a good enough job to get the state to do something, and I don't know the process. Maybe they're doing the best they can. Maybe I should have done more to get involved, to be the pit bull, to go after it. I don't know what the answer is. So that's that. Shame on the state. Secondly, I have a lot of people that I know, like this woman sitting right next to me, Beverly Anderson, okay, who's been in this town forever. She was my mother's best friend, okay? My mother died on her birthday. I know this woman all my life. She's like a second mother to me growing up as a kid. So I have empathy for the people, for the seniors in this town. I'm 61 years old this year myself, so I could potentially go to the senior center myself. However, I hear a lot of the complaints from the seniors saying, we're on a fixed income, we can't afford it, we're on a fixed income, we can't afford it. I understand that. I feel for you and all the other people, like this gentleman that just spoke about the senior as well. He's on a fixed income. Well, let me tell you something. I worked 755 hours of overtime last year. I've been working 2 and 3 jobs my entire life to maintain my home and to have the things that I have. I am on a fixed income. I can't just go to work and get a 2% raise. He got a 2% raise, that's great. You know how much I've gotten in the last 5 years? Zero, not one more dollar, nothing. So that doesn't really hold a lot of water, because us working people, we can't just go to work and make more money. Gee, I want a raise, my costs went up, my electric went up, my food went up, everything else went up for working people. We can't just go to work. The young people in this town, which is the driving force behind this town, is the young people. We can't get more money. So in theory, we're on a fixed income as well. So that doesn't really hold a lot of water with me. If this school closes, I have friends that I've made that have moved into this town. Clearly, I've been here my whole life. They came here, they moved here because of the school system, because of this school, period, end of discussion. This school closes, this town's going down the crapper. I got news for you. The cops need their money, the cops deserve their money, the stuff that they go through, the first responders for those people, on the 4 kids that were killed in this town. What about the cops that showed up, the 4 kids that died on the road going to Warren to Quabog? Those guys deserve way more than they get. We've lost some damn good cops in this town over $1 or $2 an hour. It's sickening. It's terrible. These guys need their money. Jimmy Daly, Mark O'Donnell, all those guys, Wes Cassidy, the water department, the town people, the EMS people, they all need their money. They all need their money. It has to go up. If you run a business like this town has been run, you're out of business. You're bankrupt. If I go to work tomorrow and my boss says, sorry, we have to close because we can't afford to stay open, that's not my fault. So people in town have had a false sense of security that they've trusted the people that run the town to take care of us. We pay our bills, we pay our taxes. I think a lot of people feel that because of that, we should have a staff in place, the boss, if you would, for a lack of a better term, to run the town, to take care of the financial responsibilities, to keep us safe and keep our services open. I don't know all the gory details. I don't have any answers, suggestions, or anything in regards to that, but I feel like the people in charge of the town have failed the town in making them aware or making the funds available to keep the school and the departments going. I just feel failed by the town the people that run the town. And I'm not saying it's their fault. They could have come into this job. It could have been the previous administration. I don't know. Maybe the previous administration is to blame. I don't know what the answer is. I'm having a hard time voting for it because I don't know if these guys will get their money. I don't know if the school will get open. I don't mind paying a little more. I don't mind working a little more overtime to keep the school open, to get the EMS there. I don't mind doing that, and I don't think a lot of other people would mind as much if they had the answers. And lastly, I think it's awful that the school committee is not here to talk at this meeting. That is completely unacceptable. That's all I have to say.
So I do want us to respond to you. I hear everything that you're saying. I wish I wasn't the one that was up here at each informational bringing you the bad news. So I've been here a little over a year, had no idea when I walked in the door that the town's finances were as they are. What I do know is that at your town meetings, the advisory committee presented for the last 8 years. Listen, you're going to be using a whole lot of free cash. The state tells you do not use one-time revenues to supplement your budget because all you're doing is putting a Band-Aid on, and when you rip that Band-Aid off next year, that wound is going to be bigger.
Right.
So they've said that 8 years in a row, and then they have printed that in the paper. They have printed that in the town report.
Right.
I have, in my short term here, I've had the occasion to go to pretty much every advisory committee meeting. And until recently, there was nobody there except for a department head putting forward their budget. Select board meetings. I've sat at that table for every single select board meeting. And there might be a handful of people, but usually they're the ones that have an item on the agenda. They need something. The one that, you have someone running for office this year for select board, that gentleman has showed up at every single meeting and sat there the entire time making note and getting to learn what the town is about and the town government. And so to say that past administration is at fault, I can't really, I wasn't here, but I can't really agree with that statement simply because I've had no choice but to take a deep dive into your finances. And that means I'm looking at record of vote. I'm looking at all the reports, all your revenues. I'm going into the gateway system, which, very few of us have access to that system, and that's the DOR system, where the state tracks everything, and that's where all of our reports, our financial team has to report every penny to the state. And that's where you look when you start projecting out. And as I got deeper and deeper into this, I realized, oh my, this problem's been going on for a long, long time. And it is just, to me, it is the worst place to be, because I do understand. And I understand that, and with the seniors, but even like you had said, the everyday working person. I'm the only income in my household, and I got all I can do. And honestly, every year that mortgage is going up and my taxes are going up, I don't know, an apartment's looking pretty darn good compared to a mortgage right now, and the insurance and all of it. I get it. And that's why I've tried so hard, and the board gets it, and advisory. We've tried so hard to be very transparent through this and to make sure that you're not thinking that we're trying to pressure you in any way. You've got to make a decision that you're comfortable with.
Right.
And when it comes to sharpening the pencils, I understand that, so trust me, I've broken plenty of pencils as we go through to cut, because we know that if it fails, we have to have a balanced budget.
Right, and again, I said, shame on me for not getting more involved and not knowing more about it and all that other stuff, but it's not my cup of tea. I'm not gonna go to work and try and do a job that I'm not cut out to do, and I'm not cut out for that type of job.
Sure.
So, with all due respect, again, and I said it right off the top, I appreciate everybody that works for this town, that volunteers their time, that does so much to keep things going.
Yep.
The past people that have done it, the past, heads of every department and everything. Mm-hmm. But all of that, you can beat that dead horse with a stick as much as you want. Doesn't change a damn thing today. People today want to know, okay, we did this, that, and that. Everybody did their best. Everybody tried this. Everybody tried that. And we're still right here, right? So you have to ask yourself from the outside looking in, well, I'm on the outside. I don't go to a lot of meetings. I don't get involved. So I'm trusting those people, and it fell short. They didn't get the job done. So at work, if that happens and you go to work, your boss says, you're fired.
Okay.
Okay, let me finish.
Yep,
I let you finish respectfully.
Right. Yep.
Okay? So what happens is everybody, no matter what happened in the past, we can't go back. We can't change it. All we can do is move forward. And again, I can only speak for myself, but I think the people in town want to know, okay, that happened. What do we do now? What do we have to do now? If we pass the 2.5, is the school going to stay open? Are these guys going to get their money? Are these things going to happen? It's hard to give an open checkbook to somebody that's failed already. I'm not saying it's you, them, or anybody else, but I've talked to enough people that we just don't want to pass it and feel like there's going to be an open checkbook and we're going to be in the same situation.
Yeah.
So I know MJ, and I know how smart she is, and I know how clever she is. She's a very successful businesswoman, and I appreciate her opinion on things. So I would like to hear it, MJ, if you could come up here. Because she is a very clever woman, and I do know her.
So having sat in this room year after year and come to even some of the special town meetings, unfortunately, I can tell you that this is not new news. And whether or not anybody here wants to believe it or think that somebody is trying to put a scare tactic forward, the fact of the matter is that this is not new news. And the reality of the situation is that we cannot guarantee, if this passes, that the town is gonna, that the ship is gonna upright itself. And I do know, and I'm not gonna refer to the individual, but the Financial Advisory Board lost a very talented woman who put a lot of energy and effort in trying to communicate that message to the community several years ago, and she finally gave up and walked away because she would come in here year after year with pie charts and information and try to drive home a very difficult message. So the reality of the situation is that the information has been out there. And no, there are no guarantees here tonight. If it passes, the fate of the school is complex and out of the hands of the people that are here. If we pass whether it's A or B that passes, there's no guarantee that the school is gonna go forward. But there is a hope that we can keep our level services if we pass it, that the fire and the EMS and some of the other departments, particularly our financial core, can stay together, our financial team. Because if we lose our financial team, and I think that was discussed earlier today, but just think about it. Think about what your household would look like today with the costs going up, with your income fixed. I just retired and I did make a reasonably good living, and I am struggling with the transition from money coming in to a fixed income. So I'm right there with you, because I'm trying to get the best life I can while I can physically do the things I want to do. But the reality of the situation is, if we don't fund this, I don't know how we're going to move forward. I don't know how we're going to move forward. And if we lose our financial team, think about it. Think about running your household with your fixed income, with your insurance costs going up, your mortgage going up, with cost of food rising. You're trying to find ways to cut back. Maybe it's less vacations, maybe you go through your closet and it still looks like it's going to look pretty good next year. Now, try to navigate those shoals if you can't balance your checkbook, because that's what we're talking about. We lose our financial support in the accounting department. We're not only in rough seas, now we can't balance the checkbook. And if we can't balance the checkbook, the possibility of receivership becomes significantly greater at a much early point in time. And then we lose our autonomy. Then there's no longer a town meeting for you to not come to and not be informed about, because there is no town meeting because Big Brother's running town. So the message has been there for a very long time. I'm sorry about the dates that conflicted. I'm sorry that there aren't more people here. But the reality of the situation is, if we hope to maintain some autonomy, if we hope to be able to move forward, we need this money. And it's not mismanagement, and it's not bad people. it's taxes, I mean, not taxes, it's insurance, it's unions, it's the things that are part and parcel of everybody's existence, and it's not just your household, it's the community that's coming up. You know what, I'm not, okay. Oh, I have no doubt that the state is significantly part of the problem.
What you say is the state not helping to fund all these small communities that have problems.
I'm not in a position to put a percentage on it. I don't, yeah, I've been on the Financial Advisory Board for less than 6 months. Well, okay, the state is letting us down. We have a state that's letting us down and not doing a real good job. Now let's put the town in the receivership hands of the state that can't run themselves, okay? If we have a chance at autonomy, we need to pass the override. I don't want to pay any more taxes, trust me, but this is dollars and cents, numbers, reality. So that's just my message.
Hi, sorry. I'm Lindsay. I moved to town because of this school. My children both came here. They're older now. I am a 5th grade teacher here. I love working here, the families, the community, everything. I also have not really been educated before this. I'm just kind of curious, how do we get businesses in town? Did you say it's because, I'm trying to understand what you said about like the town sewer. How do we recruit businesses to come here to try to get more revenue for the town?
Well, that's going to be part of the planning process. So what I was saying is that you don't have a lot of, you don't have a lot of businesses, let's say, that would typically require like town sewer. It's a lot easier for communities to have businesses when you have sewer available, right? So we have to approach it differently. And so part of that process will be the study of, to figure out how to best bring business in without jeopardizing the character of the community. And so there'll be that balance. And that takes time, and it takes some strategic planning, and again, takes the input of the community.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Ken Elo, Ragged Hill Road.
Hi.
Hi. And I'm going to just share a couple of thoughts, as I've been listening around here. First, and in my career, I have been part of budget cuts forever. So first, I want to thank you and the team for everything you have lived through, tried to live through, and are trying to do now to balance the budget. It's hard. It's a really hard job. One of the things that I keep coming back to is, we have essential services. And I call them essential because they are. We all move to this town or live here for a reason. And it's the character of the town, it's the services we get from the town. Certainly the police, fire, EMS, highway are paramount there. I was amazed at how many people use the library. And the senior center. I didn't know that before I came to the last meeting. But one thing that really becomes apparent is that this town is a community of people and parts that give it its character. And we're left with a budget. And that budget has to be made somehow. We have to be made whole. When I look at the tax rates for our surrounding towns, we're lower than every other town around here significantly. And that's, I'm retired, I'm on a fixed income, but I live here for a reason, and I want those reasons to continue. I want this town to be the way it is. I understand also from all of the comments that a big part of this town is the school. And I understand that you don't make decisions about that. This is a separate process, but it is part of the town's character also, an essential part of the town's character. And one thing that I've heard here is that I tend to be an optimist. Not tend to be, I am. I'm a glass half full all the time person. And one of the things that I believe is that the way this town works, everything that you've been, putting in front of us for information seems like gloom and doom, as this gentleman said. But there's an optimism behind it too. The character of this town, the where are we going, the vision for where we want to be 10 years from now, I think is a most important part of the conversation. Because we can look at a budget and what we're trying to do, and there's a hole to be filled right now, but where we want to go is a really important part of that. And so I feel that a lot of the comments that you've heard here tonight are along those lines. We want this community to be in the character and the services that we have come to love and why we live here. And I think, we can talk about the hard numbers, but the hard numbers need a context, right? And I think that's what we're starting to get at tonight. And so when I look at just the 2.5% override, I look at it as, are we paying our fair share? What are the other towns doing? And yeah, I'm willing to jack that up because I know we need to close that gap as a first step. And then I want to hear about the vision for where we go from here, including all the parts. So that's, I think, where I'm at right now. So I'm in support of the override. Let me just put that right down.
Hi, my name is Melanie Waugh. I have lived in this town my whole life. I'm going to try not to be emotional, but I'm a very emotional person. I'm 100% for the override. We need this. I think we all can see that. I don't think they're scare tactics at all. I don't want the school to close. I pray to God it doesn't. These are not the parties that we need to address this with. I think we need to reach out to the school committee and address our concerns, and I ask that you all do that. I am concerned for the seniors who can't afford it, but I do understand that there are exemptions that you can get, and you have to qualify for those, and I hope that you do. And I do have one question. So for the police department, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but at the last informational meeting, we were told that we would not go without overnight coverage. And now we are being told that we will indeed go without overnight coverage. And I just want clarity on that, and I want truth. I want to know what is going to be cut at the police department. Safety is a concern, a big concern.
At the time of the chief's presentation, his budget was cut almost $80,000, almost. 2 nights later, there was a joint meeting, and that budget received another cut of $100,000, but I will let the chief speak to it.
Good evening. Thank you guys all for coming out tonight. My name is Nathan Haglund. I am your chief of police. You are blessed to have a great cadre of police officers, fire, EMS, senior center. I'm a little partial to my cops, but everybody in our community is really important. Your police department, when we gave the last informational, we had to cut $79,750-ish. That was a police officer. We've worked really hard to get to full staffing so that we can cover you guys. And we're the first ones out in the community, and we're usually the first ones at your homes. So we worked really hard to do that, and we're there. We've been at full staffing for over a year, which is the retainment that we've been able to do has been something we haven't been able to do for years. At 79,000, we lost 1 cop. and we had to severely cut the administrative assistant's pay. And we lost a ton of overtime, so we can't even backfill if the guys wanted to work themselves to death, but we can't even backfill the overtime if they wanted to. At $180,000, that's just immense. That's almost, that's 22% of our budget. That brings us back to FY 2020 budgeting. That was 8 budget cycles ago. That's our budget went from 795 to 615. That's what $615,000 was our FY 2020 budget. So with that budget in mind, we just can't hold on to everybody, and we're not going to be there on midnight shift. We want to be there, but we're just not going to be able to service the midnight shift at all. We're not even going to try. So it's going to be a 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. police department. After that, state police will cover the calls. The calls are still going to go to C8, which is a joint dispatch. You guys are still going to be taken care of, but the response time is going to be, I would say, lagging well behind, really far behind. I can tell you 2 weeks ago, we went to an overdose, myself and one of the sergeants was the first one there, saved the guy's life. My officers were the first ones at a house fire last year, saved the house. These stories, I could keep on going and going on, but that's what the police department does for you. That's what your EMS does for you. That's what your fire department does for you. We can't do it without the financial team, and I can tell you, Teresa, I'm not pumping her tires, but she's a 32-hour-a-week employee, salaried employee, but she works a lot more than that, I can tell you that. But yeah, to answer your question, there'll be no police coverage overnight. We want to be there for you. I made the town tell me, cut the shift. And it was really a struggle to do that, because I feel the same exact way you do. So,
Thank you.
I just have a quick question. All of the, Michelle Savage, John Gilbert Road. With all of the state funding and the increases that are proposed through like the MMA, for the additional UGA funds and Chapter 70 funding that aren't going to be voted on until July 1st, I understand the importance of having our budgets kind of sent and voted upon. What if these pass and we all of a sudden get the additional UGA funds, the additional Chapter 90 funds, the additional Chapter 70 funds that are all before our state Senate aren't going to be voted on until July 1st?
Right. And so what would happen if something like that were to happen, and now we have an influx of funds that we didn't think we were going to have, but let's say one of the overrides had passed, but we don't need that full amount, you're not taxed on that, whether it was the 1.1 or the 1.6. You're only taxed on what was necessary.
Okay.
And that is that.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we're not allowed to, by law, and that's part of the Prop 2.5, we're not allowed to tax you anymore, so.
I just wanted to
Yep,
understand.
yep, no, I get it.
It's off-base, towns are voting now, and
Yep.
the state still hasn't given us all.
All right, we'll take one more question, and then we'll be done for the night.
I just want to clarify a little bit, just to make sure that it's clear for everyone who's not as riled up about the school as some folks here, that if the 1.6 passed and the school closed, it would go down to the 1.1, right? Or it would go down, like you wouldn't take the full 1.6, right?
No.
If the 1.6 passed,
And the school's still closed. So
and
they
the
wouldn't need
school's
same
still
funding.
closed, so the 1.6 is for the school's level services. So if they were still providing those services, and then of course that would be contingent upon Warren as well in order for that. So, so what I'm trying to say is that the 1.6 would pay for the option number 1 budget that they had put forward.
Yeah.
The level services.
But if the vote passed for 1.6, but then we didn't have all the funds we needed to keep this school open, not like between the two districts. We should have. Well,
yeah.
So if that,
So let me clarify how how it works. I understand what you're saying.
Okay, thank you.
So if the override amount passed at the $1.6 million, that would give that option of level services at the school department. That number is $5.9 million that the school district would assess the town of West Brookfield. What the school has told us is if they close the school, that would be option 3. That assessment amount is $5,275,000. What will happen is, regardless of the override number that gets passed, if it does, what the school committee votes as an assessment is what comes to the town, each town. So I would expect, and I would argue with them, if they were going to close the school and then still wanted the $5.9 million, because we passed a $1.6 million override, I don't believe they'd even try that, because we also know Warren couldn't afford their portion because they don't have an override. So I don't see that happening. But if the $1.6 million override passed and they closed the school, based on their assessment is how much we would use, which we would expect to only be up to the 1.1 million.
Okay,
For the
so then
town
in
and
turn,
school.
it would bring us down to
Correct.
a lower amount on
Correct.
the override.
So if the
I just wanted to
1.6 million
clarify for the fixed income, like, you know, the people who are worried about
Correct.
that amount, that if it passed and the school closed, they wouldn't still be on the hook for that money.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted
Okay.
to make sure was clear for everyone else.
Yep, exactly.
Well, thank you all for coming tonight. And remember, election will be at the Senior Center on May 5th, beginning at 8 a.m., ending at 8 p.m. Good night.